Welcome! Tonight we are going to be talking about Strangers Pray at Night. And I've got two very guests who have joined me from the Midnight Society. One of them is plopping into the glory hole for the very first time. Please give a warm welcome to my new friend, John.
Yay, John.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you great.
Okay, good. And someone who I've been friends with for a while here, and it was really nice to do this collab with my buddy Patrick, minus his cheetah.
Minus the cheetah. He might make an appearance later on. He might. He's possibly in the mood. Have Cheetah Will View. That's right. Glad to be here.
Our cheetahs should stream.
Yeah, you know, as soon as it gets warmer, I'm sure we'll be seeing the cheetah stream. When it's winter, he tends to like hibernate a lot.
Sometimes mine's in the background here. Oh, let's see who's in the chat today. Who do we got in the chat? We got ADGTNAT. You know, I don't know how to pronounce it. Let me know. But they're them and their podcast are here. So that's cool. Welcome to the Gory Hole. First 3 rows do get wet. So, you know, wear a poncho. Jason's here. Nice to see you. And Jaden, who is part of the B Movie Coven, a channel member. Welcome, my friend. Thank you for using those emojis. I worked very hard on those. My younger brother from the Maki Connections here. Do you guys like Makis or cars? I don't know. Go check it out.
He said he asked me to rub my mustache like an evil mad scientist, but I did my Pai Mei instead.
Oh, very nice. He loves cats too, by the way. So you guys have that in common.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
I'm gonna come at you guys like a spider monkey with a very unpopular opinion. Strangers Pray at Night, part 2 is better than the first one.
Hell yeah.
Fight me.
I agree.
I enjoyed it very, very much. Very much. I thought it was a lot more action. Definitely, for sure.
So, gonna give you guys a little bit of, you know, preamble, if you will, on this movie. It came out like a decade after the first one. It was in developmental hell, which usually it spells bad news for a sequel. There's a lot of different directors. Eventually, we got Johannes Roberts, who I really like. 47 Meters Down that they did. Not crazy about 47 Meters Down too. Not crazy about Welcome to Raccoon City, but that 47 Meters Down, lovely. Brian Bertino was one of the co-writers on this. And, you know, we got a really all-star cast. We got, you know, Christina Hendricks. You know, she's in Mad Men and tons of stuff. Everybody loves her, and she's a badass. We got Martin Henderson, which this was the first thing I'd seen him in since The Ring. And now he's gone on and done X. So I hope we see more Martin Henderson. He's terrific.
He's aged crazy well. Like, he doesn't look old.
Like fine wine.
I gotta mention Martin Henderson as for one movie outside the genre, but I highly recommend him in Flyboys.
Ooh, very nice.
Okay.
Very evil. Also, Bailey Madison, who she is such a sweetheart. I remember when this movie came out, like if you tweeted about this movie and complimented her, she'd like respond to you. Like, she is a sweetheart and brilliant child actor. I remember I first saw her in Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, where it's the Guillermo del Toro.
Right, the Katie Holmes remake, right?
Right.
Yeah, a remake of the TV movie. She's also in The Haunting Hour, the one with the doll. She's a really cool actress. I hope we see her. And Lewis Pullman, who is Bill Pullman's son. He's been doing a lot of stuff. You know, he's done a lot of non-horror stuff, like he's in Maverick, he's in Bad Times at El Royale. I am excited because he's going to play Ben Mears in the Salem's Lot remake this year. Like,
wow,
dude.
I didn't know that. That's incredible.
So good. So good, guys. So good. So evil.
Is that Salem Lot going to be released theatrically, or is that going to be a miniseries?
Yes. It was supposed to come out last year. It has been pushed back. Not entirely sure why. What I can tell you is my cousin did see the first 15 minutes. They premiered before a big showing of The Black Phone that he went to, and he said it was incredible. And this movie, Salem's Lot, has never gotten a theatrical release before. And I think both the TV runs we've had have been really good. So I'm excited. And yeah, Lewis Pullman, hey, I think he could, if this movie is good, you know, Lewis Pullman could, you know, he could blow up, guys.
Yeah, he's good. He's like really good in everything, man. He's good in Bad Times at El Royale as the like chauffeur character, and then you learn like his backstory towards the end. I thought he did a great job. He definitely looks a lot like his father, and they have that same kind of chemistry, like or I guess I don't know, intensity to them. And I think he's going to be really good, and he's great in this movie. I really like he and Bailey Madison together. They worked well together.
Let's start. You know, guys, if you're new to the Gory Hole and you're new guests here, things are kind of crazy here. We're just gonna hang out like we're hanging out in that 70s basement. We're just gonna jump on in. If we interrupt each other, sometimes that happens. It's okay. Just, you know, jump on in. But keep it kind of loosey goosey. So I want to talk about the cast and the characters. I think one of the reasons I like this movie better is I liked the characters so much more. I was immediately invested. They did such a good job. This could have been we're on a road trip. We're going to stop by our uncle's trailer, and we wouldn't have gotten to know these people. But it was such an intelligent move to give them a family problem that they're dealing with, because we learn more about people when they're going through shit than we do when they're happy. And so the fact that she's going to this boarding school, but you can still tell mom's doing it because she loves her. She thinks it's her best chance. Dad's doing it because he loves her, you know, and even the brother who's giving her shit, that's the one they send to go talk to her when she's upset. So, you know, these kids are pretty close.
Yeah, it's almost like it is that kind of simpler American Pie family setup, which I think works much better than the boring couple that will she or will she not marry me? That shit's bullshit. But here, I like the whole kind of family conflict. It almost reminds me of a little movie called The Hills Have Eyes, where it's just the nice American family that didn't want to kill, but they didn't want to die. And that's really the similar setup that you get here with Strangers Part 2. And it's definitely more of a slasher movie setup, because we don't get like, you know, crazy three-dimensional characters, but they're very likable. These are people we've encountered in our life. Hell, these might have been problems we've had with our own families, brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, all that stuff. So I think that grounded them and made me gravitate towards them as well. I think that's a great point. I do think that the characters are far better here than they are in the first movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot more interaction. I mean, because basically, honestly, it's a 2-act. It's you know, even though they have 5 characters, or 6 if you included Mike in there, but it's really just a 2-character play in The Strangers. So it's limited what they could do, since the killers didn't really engage with them verbally. So this obviously is a much more detailed, a lot more engagement. There's a lot more engagement with characters. So it definitely is a stronger the movie for that.
I feel like these characters felt really authentic, and even though we know they don't have perfect relationships, I like how we got a lot of nuance from these characters. You know, we get you can tell pretty quickly that mom is in charge. Mom made the decision that she's going to boarding school. You know, the dad's like, I'm not sure about this, but we also know when we see him later on, he is not like a pushover. He's not a weak person. When they're stuck in the car, he's actually pinned into the car. He tells his son to go. You know, he is a strong man. And sometimes being strong is not having the loudest voice. You know, sometimes being strong is knowing when to support your wife making a decision that she might know more about than you. Sometimes being strong is, you know, sacrificing your life for your son. He's quietly strong, and I loved that about this character. He's not like super butch, like everyone's doing the house while I go fix this. You know, he trusts his son to go with him. He trusts his wife and his daughter alone. I think splitting up was a mistake. But I liked this character. I liked Martin Henderson's character in this.
Yeah, I liked him too. And I think that's a great point where even though he doesn't have to yell or shout, he has the strength and the respect to speak quietly, and everyone listens to him. And I think that's a really, it goes a long way, because it, like, again, harking back to the first one, Scott Speedman, he doesn't believe Liv Tyler's character when she says shit's about to hit the fan. Here, it seems like a joint kind of act, even though not everybody makes it. It still seems like they were all on the same page, whether they split up or not, whether they made all the right choices or not. I still think there was I don't know, a joint enough kind of faction here that works in this movie a lot better.
Oh, we can also talk about mom. I think it was cool that they didn't. Sometimes movies will over explain the plot. We get pretty early on, and it's organically revealed that Bailey Madsen's character Kinsey she's done something, but they don't tell us what it is, and it's fine because we're kind of dropped in media res in this. She's done something, and the solution is she's going to go to boarding school. She did something with her friends because her friends aren't being sent anywhere. She mentions that at one point. But yeah, mom is like, I wish somebody would have done this for me. So I think I like that the script trusts the audience to figure it out. We have figured out that mom was probably a little shit kid, like a teenager. Mom probably, got into some trouble, and she did figure it out. Her daughter says, well, you turned out okay. But it was probably a rough road. And I think she thinks that she's helping Kenzie do that. And she's also able to admit that maybe it's beyond what she can offer Kenzie, which I think is really good.
Yeah, I remember actually seeing this with a group of friends, and a lot of people, I was not familiar with the actress that played the mother, although she's apparently a big deal, because all my friends are devastated when she's the first one to go. And I was like, oh, geez, like, I didn't, like, they were all disappointed. And I think in turn kind of turned on the movie. What is she famous from? Do either of you?
Mad Men. Mostly from Mad Men.
There you go. I've never watched an episode, so I was baffled. I was like, "What?"
She's actually really good. I know a lot of people just looked at her, at Mad Men, when she played Joan, and they just commented because she's redheaded and she's got she's got a terrific figure. But if you look past that, if you just watch her act, she's actually pretty good. She's actually a lot stronger. She's a lot stronger than people think. She had a small part in Drive, and that she really stood out in. Christina Hendricks is she's very good.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was funny because all my friends, we walked out, they were like, God damn it, they killed her too early. I was like, and she was the one I didn't know. I knew the other three fine, but I had no clue. But I never watched Mad Men, so that makes sense.
It does what the first movie did very effectively too. I think a lot of us, we get really embroiled in these, everyday problems. And, like, she doesn't want to marry this guy. And it seems so important to them at the start of the movie. And at the end of it, she's like, I love you. That's all that really matters. Like, they have this problem that seems so monumental. And at the end of the movie, it just doesn't matter. They love each other. That's all they have left. And in this movie too, Kinsey is so angry at her mom for betraying her and her dad for giving her away. And the moment, her mom sacrifices herself for her, they're strapped in that bathroom and she gets her up into that vent and she's like calling her. She's like, mommy, she's like a little girl again. Yeah. And, like, when it comes down to it, even though they get mad at each other, like, she loves her mom so much. And her mom is so strong for her. She's not crying or breaking down. She's like, no, you go. She's a strong ass woman.
Yeah, and that's what any good mother would do. They'd save their kid first, I think. Even though you say you're my teenage mom, you love
I'm old enough to be his mother if I had a kid in high school.
Yeah, get out of the, but
John.
I'm glad that I'm making it out of the sunroof alive. I don't know if I'm gonna fit through the goddamn skylight. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, no,
I think mom powers. I can lift up cars, but only over my own children. So you're gonna be okay.
Oh, there you go. That's be like Kal-El, just lift it up.
That's right. I will say this: seeing Bailey Madison in this role, it was a little bit of an eye opener, because up to this point, what I've always seen her in has always been sort of like young teen fare, young adult fare.
Yeah,
I had never really seen her do anything like this before, and it's sort of like it helped mature her both as an actress, because now she's not going to get typecast in all these little, you don't want to get locked into those teen roles all your life, and for her to come out there and show a little steel and get her hands a little bloody and whatnot, I think it was a good step for her as far as her career goes. Now you can look
Definitely.
at her and see her as a like, oh, she's a good screen queen.
Yeah, for real. And she's one of those. I think I don't mean this as a knock. I actually mean this as the utmost confident. Like she has the kindest eyes. I feel like so it's hard to cast her in anything that's not like that. But she does a great job. I think Bailey Madison's great.
I think she's a sweetheart, and I love how punk rock she is in this. Like that, we've got a variety of characters in this, so no matter who you are, I think there are characters in this that you can find a way to relate to. I was a little shithead kid who liked the Ramones and had dyed black hair too. So like I instantly liked this kid, even though she's a little sassy brat, because when it comes down to it, we can see she's a good kid. Like when she gets away, her first thing is, we need to go save my brother. And I have 2 brothers, and my brothers and I give each other a lot of shit, but I always say, just because I did it doesn't mean you can do it. Anybody else does anything to my brothers, and it's all like, the claws are out. And that's how these kids are. Like they give each other a lot of shit, but there's a tight bond there, and I think that's why we really pull for this family, because, they're good people.
Definitely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think they're very believable too. Like they may not I would say the mother doesn't look like there's no resemblance of any of them, but it's like again.
I don't think Bailey Madsen looks like them. I think Lewis Pullman could be their kid, because I mean Christina Hendricks has dyed red hair. She's naturally blonde. He's Martin Henderson's fair haired. I'd buy it. He could be their kid.
Yeah.
Bailey Madsen, honey, you're the mailman's baby.
Stork dropped her off. Yeah.
Mailman was hot too, apparently. Good genes. I got some cool people in the chat here. Horror Movies and Beyond, really great channel. I'm super excited because I know she's gonna. She agreed to be on my channel for an upcoming stream. So hey, her channel's amazing. She's doing Shudderary, so check that out.
Nice.
What's she doing?
Shudderary, like movies on Shudder. She's talking about them on our channel.
Oh, really nice. Cool. You know what's really good about that? There's a lot of ISC Midnight movies on that channel.
This is true.
Oh yeah. Horror Movies and Beyond. I'll be seeing you real soon.
Yeah, I think you guys would both get a kick out of her channel. She's really just a great host. Really cool gal. Alrighty, so now we're gonna move on. Let's talk about camera work. So lights, visuals, all the things. One of the things I noticed right away, and it felt like a direct nod to the first film. The first film I felt was notable for its very wide shots. And so it's one of those movies where you're looking in the dark, crevices of the room, and sometimes you're going to find somebody there. This movie did that. It's something really interesting early on, though, where you have Kinsey in her room and Mom's in the background, and they're both in focus. So I felt like it was kind of, paying tribute to that, but also doing their own thing with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this movie, from a cinematography standpoint, is way better. Like it's definitely more colorful, more vibrant. It's really more 80s like, as opposed to the first one's more 70s like. Even though they're both made, post 2000. So I mean, it is what it is. They're throwbacks in different ways. But I think this movie's, the way it's shot and the colors fit way more with the tone, I think, because this is more like an 80s like dumb 80s slasher movie. And that's kind of why I like it.
Definitely more vibrant.
It's different. It's way different from the first one. First one's like slow burn. This one, the shit hits the fan rather early, and then it's kind of a survival, almost becomes like an action film in a lot of ways. Like I love the sequence at the pool. I think that's like the best scene in any of these movies. I would say that scene is just, it steals.
It's so good.
Yeah, very exciting. Very exciting. I mean, it's and you're happy to see someone finally, one of those, we actually buy it. It's like, hell yes, way past time that when
he hits her with that club, it's such a yes moment, Mm-hmm. I love how this movie finds ways of incorporating color with just, things that are naturally there, like the pool lights, the bright lights there, or even just in the trailer park. It finds ways to bring in color, and it really does contrast with the first movie, because the first movie is trying, I think, to look real, and basically, like we talked about this on the last stream, how the point is that real murder isn't fun, it isn't interesting, it's a horrible thing that happens. And it's the banality of it that's so crushing. Whereas this one, it's like, if you didn't like the first one, buckle up, because we're going to give you the roller coaster. We're going to basically give you the same story, but with kind of a, Friday the 13th or mainstream slasher twist. And so it's still approaching a lot of the same things because it is a very home invasion type situation, but it's doing it with a little bit of that flash. Yeah. It's also an 80s throwback, whereas the last one's a little bit of a 70s throwback.
Yeah, that's why I think I lean towards this one more, is because I remember going to I actually saw this in a theater with people that were like, they loved the first one. And I was like, man, I don't like the first one at all. And we left the opposite. They all hated it. And I liked the sequel. I was like, this is, I think, more like up my alley. But granted, I like quite a few slow burn movies too. I don't know what it is about that first movie to me that disconnects, but I totally clicked more with this movie and what it was going for. I think it's funny. It's a movie that's far more simple, but it's far more effective at the same time. It's not scary like the first one, but I think it's a more effective movie. It's definitely more entertaining and one that I would reach for to rewatch more. I think it has far more rewatchability factor.
Absolutely agree with that.
I think part of that is because that whenever we watch a movie like this, there's always that one element that we're looking for. That is seeing the bad person get their comeuppance. And the first one, we never got that. We just watched them slowly, like 70s. We just watched them slowly go to their doom. There was nothing anybody could do to stop it. Here, we can root for them because they fight back. And that's always more interesting, to see someone, okay, yes, they suffer some losses and it's going to be hell to pay after that. But at least they're going to get theirs. They're going to go out there. They're going to fight back. And I think we all can relate to that.
Definitely.
Want to welcome a brother of a certain age in the chat. Joe Bob Briggs does. By the way, Joe Bob Briggs, he's my hero. He does Last Drive on Shudder. If you guys aren't watching it, you are missing out. Really glad that you mentioned that. And we got the movie Massacre, my very good friend here, and my husband, who's actually in the bath right now, guys. So, there's a little bit of imagination.
He's in the bath and he's in the screen.
Yeah.
He's multitasking.
Yes. Another visual I really like in this, if you guys watch my show or you see my reviews, I'm a sucker for fog. They use fog really well in this. I also love this setting, this trailer park that's completely abandoned because it's the winter season. And it starts off really strong too. Both movies have a really interesting opening. And this one is with the trailer park where they're going after the aunt and uncle first. And it's so effective. He just turns around and then there's the doll face person on his bed. We don't need to see the kill. Like, that's already a good scare. Really great pacing in this one. I never looking at the time. I've seen this movie multiple times. And it goes by really, really, really quick.
Is this movie 90 minutes even?
Oh, I wouldn't know.
It doesn't feel like it. It feels like 80 or less. Like, it is a short movie.
Yeah, the first one was short too. The first one was only 82, but boy, oh boy, it felt like 2 hours.
Is it really? The first movie?
It's an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I know The Strangers is like an hour and 30. So and I have the unrated cut too, so it's an extra 9 minutes. So they're about the same length.
Wow, I'm astonished that this one's actually 3 minutes longer. That's because it makes no sense. Pat's so right. The first one feels like it's 2 hours. It's slow and like I would look at my phone honestly upon rewatch. I was like, damn, like, and I would never do that.
I wanted to rewatch it today, but I've seen The Strangers enough times that a lot of times when she's just wandering around outside, like, and I can fast forward this part and this part. The gory cut of The Strangers is actually like 45 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that at all.
I just speed it up. No.
There you go.
Gory B movie cut. So I think that's a perfect segue into talking about the script and the story and maybe some of our favorite parts of the movie.
Sure. I think the whole kind of idea of having the parents taken out of the situation, I thought was rather clever. And I didn't see it coming necessarily. Like when the movie starts, it's like, I thought it was going to be a classic, just like the first one. Instead of 2 on the strangers, it would be all the 4 of them on the strangers. But they bam, take away the authority figures, and then it's brother and sister have to come together and defeat these people. And I really liked the kind of story and the way it played out. It's basically like an hour of that, because the parents do not make it very long in this film at all. So I don't know. I thought it was quite effective. I thought it was pretty well done personally. I liked the direction of the story, and I liked the strangers in this movie. I thought they were still, kind of garnered the same creepiness that they had in the first movie. And I even though they did change the actors, right? We were established that.
Yeah, they changed the actors. They are different. Another guy who plays the man with a mask, he's also in Haunt. He was really proud of this movie too. He talked a lot and did a lot of press for it. And I think he's great in it. I think everyone's great in this movie. And if you want those same scares, I'm saying this in case you guys haven't seen the movies, those iconic moments in the first one, I think notably when Liv Tyler's character Kristen looks out the window and he's right there. There's also when the man in the mask is in the background. We still get that, just without the languid pace. There's a great part where Kenzie's in a tunnel and she's sitting there trying to catch her breath. And we're like, okay, Kenzie's good. All right, we can relax. And then there's Pinup Girl right there. And it's such a good moment. There's a lot of places in that where we get this cool like jump scare, but without the bad music, like signaling us that it's a jump scare. Just really effectively creepy moments.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Even though I would say it doesn't have the atmosphere of the first one. I think it's definitely effective in what it's trying to do for this movie. Like I would say it's a step up in that direction for sure.
I agree.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick.
No, I just like.
Is he saying Patrick?
No.
You're
You're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I talk a lot, so you jump in. Seriously, you will not offend me. I have people on the show a lot like, well, I don't want to interrupt. Honey, I was raised on an Air Force base with brothers. Jump on it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Does not offend me at all. Something I wanted to mention that was really interesting, because for the longest time after The Strangers, I always wondered, so did Kristen live? The final shot we get is kind of a scare of her, screaming. We do know the cops are on the way because the movie opens with a police call from the boys who are going door to door. So we know they're on their way, but we don't know if they're going to get there in time. We also don't know if she's going to die in the ambulance. She's pretty messed up. It wouldn't be inconceivable that she would die. But we actually got confirmation that she is alive, because the original first scene of this movie in early drafts of the script was her getting killed, a la Alice in Friday the 13th Part 2. So it would show that she had survived, and they kind of clean up that mess. So I actually like kind of knowing that she's alive.
My question would be with that though, she saw their faces. Like, would there have been any kind of like way for her to try to expose them? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I mean, maybe they're off the grid or something. That's something else I wonder about them, because they're just in that truck, and I don't know.
Listening to the Kids of America, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that too, because especially in the early 2000s when The Strangers came out. So when The Strangers came out, we were in a time of very industrial horror. You had like your torture porn. You had a lot of like movies that were really over the top gory. And a lot of them had this new metal soundtrack, like nonstop shouting in your ear. And that works. And there's a lot of people who love that. And I love that too. But I think it's kind of fun to watch this movie, which is still able to be very scary. And yet it's got Bonnie Tyler and all these pop songs from the 80s.
I think it's more scarier when you throw songs like that on there, because it's more quiet. And, to me, the quiet minutes is always more scarier than the noisy one.
Yeah. And I love all the music used in this movie, soundtrack wise. This is a great movie. Like even the I know nothing at all, like it's perfect. It's like, oh my god, this is fucking fun.
That scene is just, it's pure, like it's just a purely enjoyable scene. You've got the beautiful lighting of the pool, you've got this great fight scene, they're finally fighting back. Like, I would have even accepted if they lost. I was so happy that he got that hit in. And he does. It looks like he might have lost because he gets stabbed in the back. But you got this beautiful music playing, and it's such like yes, we needed this moment. And I think we get more suspense from this movie because we know there's a chance they can make it. These people have fight in them. They are strong people. The mom is strong. The dad is strong. The kids are strong. We know there is a chance they can make it out of this. And when we get those little moments, like when they get a good hit and we're like, this could be it. Or when Kinsey starts to get away, we're like, but your brother. And so it really amplifies the intensity and the suspense, I think, because we care so much more. We're so much more invested.
I would agree completely with that. I think that's a great point.
Talking a little bit more about the story. I love the dialogue, and I know Brian Bertino is credited as a writer. I don't know how much he actually had to do with it. Maybe it was just because it's a sequel to his movie, so he got a writing credit, or maybe he just helped develop the story. But so much of the dialogue in this makes me laugh. I love when the dad packs up the trunk and he says that he's the Tetris King. That's something I've said a dozen times. Packing up trunks, like, yes, Tetris Queen. So relatable and instantly likable, and they write these characters and the dialogue in a way that you just connect to these people.
Well,
Yeah.
you like, it's a very likable family. I mean, we know, and they're, and they're full of life. Whereas we met, James and Kristen, they're going through that bad night of them not being engaged and engaged because of what happened. So, they're already in a downer even before anything starts happening. We're already sort of depressed with them already. Whereas this family, when we see them, they're engaging with each other. There's just more life. It's a family. And we care about them a lot quicker.
And maybe this is just a me thing, but for me, I think the fastest way to get me to like a character is for that character to make me laugh. The dad made the Tetris line, and I'm like, all right, I like the dad. That and by contrast, I didn't like. I mean, we talked about this on the last stream. I didn't like the boyfriend in the last one because, like you said, he didn't believe her. I'm like, well, no wonder she doesn't want to marry you. If I was in that situation and my boyfriend didn't believe me, if we got out of it alive, I would be like, yeah, you're gone, dude. Nope. I can't rely on you.
Totally. That's just like, yeah, I think too, like an interesting scene was his death scene, because I remember in the theater, it was kind of tonally confused. Like people were laughing at it because the guy sat right down next to Martin Henderson. They kind of looked at him. And then I feel like there's other people that have been like, oh, wow, like that's such scary. Like the guy's just sitting there, like buttering him up almost. I don't know. What did you guys think of his death scene?
The dad's death scene, or
Yeah, Martin Henderson's death scene, the dad.
that scene is so creepy, but just because the guy's just sitting there and he knows he can take his time. It's almost like when you've got like a bug in a jar. Like there's no hurry. You're not going anywhere, buddy. And he knows he's going to die, and it's really excruciating. Honestly, the best performance I've ever seen from Martin Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, you get the same, they did the same thing for the first one too. The anticipation that, James knows, he's resigned to it. Whereas Kristen was still fighting. She was fighting against the ropes and whatnot. He's resigned to his death. He knows it's going to happen. Martin Henderson's character, he knows it's going to happen. I think at the time, he was just trying to buy time for his son. As long as he could keep the other guy engaged, every breath that he took might be a breath that his son could use to get away from these killers. So, and Martin Henderson is just an all around good actor anyway. I mean, he was really good in X. He was really good, and I mean, I've never seen a bad performance by him actually.
We've seen a lot of different performances from him too. Like his character in X is completely different than his character here. And his character in The Ring is kind of notable for being the absentee dad, where in this, like, he's a great dad,
Yeah, definitely.
I love this movie also because I feel a lot of times, which is funny because the director of this one says they're admittedly not a home invasion or a slasher fan, but I'm like, you have a lot of homages to slasher movies in there, so maybe you don't consider them slasher movies. I really love that. They were not bang you over the head obvious, but there's one where Dollface is dangling the keys in front of the window. That's from Ghostface in Scream. When the man with the mask collapses in front of the truck, that's an homage to Halloween 2 when Michael comes out of the fire and collapses. Obviously, the car going down that bridge is an homage to Christine, and that is just a gorgeous, gorgeous scene. It's so good. Like I didn't want Kenzie to die, but I'm just like, God damn, that's
I
beautiful.
got Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes for her being in the back of the pickup truck for sure.
And that too, when
Yeah.
she jumps in the back of the pickup truck, it's just like when she jumps in the back of the pickup truck in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So yeah, there's so many great ones.
Yeah, definitely. I think this movie's energy is just really good. And even like the first one has a lot of jump scares too that I don't know did or didn't work. For me, most of them don't, but I think the jump scares here really work. Like the jump scare where Bailey Madison's in this like little, I don't know if it's a tunnel or just like a little like cylinder, and you get that jump scare like the lady just pops out of the darkness. That's a really good jump scare where you're like, holy shit, like it got me in the theater for sure.
Yeah, Danny says pleading for the family's sake is the only card to play at this point. And I agree. Jason, thank you so much for the thumbs up. That certainly helps out the channel. And nice to see you here, Katie from Popping the Popcorn. And Echo's here too. So awesome group here in the chat today. There is a theory, and I kind of want to run this by you. I have my own thoughts, but I want to hear your guys' take on it. There is a theory by some fans that the strangers are supernatural. Some people are like, well, they're in multiple places at once. They don't take a lot of damage. And so people think that is why they keep surviving. So I think there is a little bit of precedence for it. There is an alternate ending of this film that I really hate. I like the theatrical version. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there's a theatrical and alternate ending where the lights are going off and it looks very haunted. And I really hate that ending. I'm glad I didn't make the theatrical cut. But overall, I think they take a lot of damage in this movie and they take it in a very human way, not in a Jason Voorhees way. So I'm leaning towards them being human. But what do you guys think?
I definitely think they're human.
Definitely human.
Yeah, like the whole. I also don't understand really the theatrical ending. I would say if I had a knock, it would be that because they do the kind of who's at the door. They're all dead. Like what? Yeah. I never got why. And why is there going to be a third one? Like the story concluded here. She killed all of them. No, like
the third one's a remake of the first one.
Oh, that's so they're the third.
It's not the Strangers 3. It's
I thought Strangers 3 was a sequel to this, and I was going to say like. What? Like this doesn't make any sense. Like
it's a remake.
Killed. Oh, okay. Because they all got wiped out. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Strangers 3 is kind of paying homage to the first one with relationship trouble. So there's this couple who's having issues. They're kind of on a road trip together. They're squabbling, and then they end up in an Airbnb where they come across the strangers.
So here's a question. I actually haven't. I'm not familiar with the alternate ending. What is the alternate ending? Is it give any kind of feasible that any of them survived?
So the theatrical ending ends with the knock at the door, and then Kenzie drops the cup. The alternate ending continues that scene. So she walks up to the door, she opens it, and there's a long hallway. And have you guys seen like movies like Lights Out, where the lights go off, going down the hallway?
Yeah.
That's what happens. And then when it finally gets up to where she's at, then you hear her scream. So it's kind of almost like a supernaturally implied ending, which I just really hate.
That's lazy. It's lazy.
It was a very jump scare, kind of like I Know What You Did Last Summer at the end of that one, and they never even acknowledged that again. But I do want to talk about this ending a little bit, because I think this ending is, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which you had mentioned earlier, John.
Yeah.
The reason it reminds me of that is because when we see Sally at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like she got away, but did she really win? No, she didn't. We can tell looking at that girl's face. She is broken. Her life will never be the same. And she almost might have been more at peace if she had died. Like you can tell this girl is wrecked. And I don't think Kenzie's quite that wrecked. She has gone through something horrible. But what we see is, I think the point is it doesn't matter. If it could be a nurse at the door. It could be somehow one of the strangers have survived. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point is that she has got severe PTSD now. She will never hear something innocuous like a knock on the door without jumping, without her heart racing. Mm-hmm. Her life is forever changed. That's really horrifying and really sad.
I agree. I think that's if the ending is going for that, it makes a lot of sense. But if you're telling me that they actually had more to that scene and then they went supernatural, I'm glad they went theatrical ending, because that sounds terrible, because there's nothing in either one of the first two movies to me that would imply supernatural. I think it's the whole point where people would be scared is because this could happen. These people could knock on your door and try to murder you or whatever. I think that's what makes them effectively scary in people's minds. I think if you made them supernatural, it would completely kibosh any credibility they have.
So, like, I was talking about this with Danny earlier today too, and even the alternate ending, because I hate the idea of it going supernatural. The alternate ending, I would still argue, is PTSD, because when you have PTSD, it could be that there's powers just going out and she's panicking, or it could be that she's hallucinating. She's gone through something extremely traumatic and she's still in fight or flight mode. So she's going to be jumping at shadows for a while.
The first time I ever saw an ending like that, where it wasn't the Texas Chainsaw. I mean, it came first, but the first time I saw an ending like that, where the final girl does escape, but did she really? Was Tourist Trap. You go back to that and see the girl. She's got all her friends with her, and she's driving, and you could clearly tell that she's been driven insane by what she went through.
Yeah.
I always thought
Friday the 13th Part 3, we find out that the whole end part was a hallucination because she has been pushed too far. She's broken down.
Yeah, and she's crazy. Like, she's laughing as she get back. So even though he didn't get her, he got her.
He did
probably
get her
even worse. He'd probably rather death.
Like how a Generation Z says things live rent free in their head. That's what happened here.
Sure.
I'm connecting to the kids, guys.
I don't know, man. I think like it's better to die than live like that, because I don't know if that's living.
I think so too.
That's surviving. That's not living, So I would say the PTSD thing, that's a really smart way to end this. But at the same time, I like these two characters enough to be like, I hope they rebounded and bond together, become closer over this event. And like, I don't want to think that their lives are ruined forever from this at all. Like, I like Lewis Pullman a lot, and I like Billy Madison. I get, though, any knock at the door can cause the stirring and memories, the repressed memories that kind of come to the surface. But I'd like to think that these two bounced back. Okay. They're
young enough to absorb. They're young enough to absorb it. The older you get, the more brittle you are emotionally. That's why a lot of kids, they can suffer a lot of trauma, and they can actually forget about it. They'll work their way through it. The younger you are, the older you are, it's harder for that to happen.
Yeah.
So you believe that, yes, they're going to mourn for their parents, but they also know too that their parents die for them, and there's some sort of peace in that. There's some sort of like heroicness in that, and makes it easier to accept as much as you can.
Yeah, then that's like the thing where they're young and they have their whole lives ahead of them too. Like, they're both probably going to meet significant others that can, take their mind off of things like this. You're right. They're gonna mourn the parents. Life is gonna take a while to get back on tracks, but when you're that young, you have so much in front of you that I think it can get back on track relatively more normal than it would be, depending on how old they would be, like older. So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Like Danny's saying, I do think she has PTSD. I think her brother is going to have severe PTSD. What they have that Sally didn't have is they have each other. And I think a lot of times we are at our strongest when we need to be strong for somebody else, for our child, our sibling, our parent. We are sometimes our best selves when we have to be strong for someone else. It's harder to be strong for ourselves, because I think a lot of us, don't feel like, especially when we're down, we don't feel like we're deserving of it. But when you love somebody like your brother or your sister, you do it. You work your way through it. And I think also people we love give us strength. It gives us hope. It's not completely bleak. They do have each other. They do. And they know that now that they can count on each other for anything. And a lot of people don't have that. Having somebody in your life that will literally would literally die for you.
Or if you did have it, then you don't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm. But they know their parents loved them very much so. They died for them. And they know that they can count on each other for anything.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice story. I think it's a far more heartfelt ending than the "we just stabbed you in the stomach because you were home and we're religious and that's it." Like, that's really, it's just a blah. Where this is, I think, actually has way more there. Even though it's simpler, I think there's way more there to be like, to look into, and kind of, actually, I think it's kind of a happy ending, even though I know it's not typical. Yeah, I would say it's a more happy ending because you think I would like to think they're going to be okay in time.
I also always love movies that gives us, especially, during the 80s, a lot of times if there was two people in a movie that were the protagonists, that was a romantic relationship. A lot of the 80s shoved down our throats that the only significant relationship in your life will be a romantic relationship. And that's great if you have one. I'm married. I think it's wonderful. But there are other relationships in your life, and you don't need to have a romantic relationship to be complete. And I love movies like this that show you, what, her brother might be the love of her life. That might be the most important person in her life. And that is okay. Other relationships in our lives are important, are
Yeah.
significant. And I like that this movie explores that these two, kids had this really great relationship. And it
Yeah, the
wasn't
love angle is very cliche too.
it's
Like
cliche.
that's
It
why
is.
I always appreciated Jeepers Creepers. That's
Yeah.
like a movie that their brother and sister. Like I feel like if it was like they were boyfriend and girlfriend, I don't think it would have worked the same. It just wouldn't
Just
have.
so many, like, I love Dr. Giggles, but there so many of these movies do that. Child's Play 3, it's just, and then usually a lot of times they just met. And so, it's a lot different than somebody you grew up with. And I think it's good that we see different kinds of relationships and we see the value in them, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I like that. I think yeah. The more I think about this movie, the more I like it. To be honest,
I love that. That makes me happy.
it's a true, and I liked it from the minute I saw it. I remember like it's funny to me because it really seems to be a big disconnect. Like a lot of people that love the first one don't like this one, and then vice versa. A lot of people that like this one.
Yeah, I don't understand it because it's basically the same characters. It's just a different setting. Nothing really fundamentally changed. I mean, the killers are doing exactly what they were doing the first one. What not to like? I mean, if he had changed them around, and made them more talkative, or added another one, or any number of things he could have done. Yeah, but they left the core part of the movies intact, and and they added more kills to it as well. I thought it was an improvement on the first one as far as the action goes. As far as that goes, and I did like the dynamic between the brother and the sister.
Brother says the fact that the last virgin told us she didn't have to end up in a romantic relationship. We've gotten a lot of movies that I feel are really challenging. That's the end all be all, because a lot of people think that is it. Like that's the course of your life. You go to high school, you go to college, you meet a significant other, you have children. That does not need to be your life trajectory. Your life can be very full and complete if it's not. It's okay, guys. Another movie I saw that I think did it beautifully was Fresh, which in that one, I would say her friend is the person who would risk her life for her. And that's a gorgeous relationship. And it doesn't have to be all romantic.
That was
I
my
love movies
favorite
like
movie
that.
of last year. I loved
One of
Fresh.
mine too. It was so good. Like there is a guy in it at one point and he pieces out, So,
Yeah,
sometimes we make our own families.
sure. Yeah, no, that's a good way to look at that. That movie, see, I thought that movie was more about like the horrors of bad relationships, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
like
Well,
I would say you take that even a step further, but yeah, her friend had her back. She did all that research to go and find her and the phones and went and asked people and stuff like that. And like that's a true friend, man. Like I would hope one of my friends would do even
and
one.
she got into that situation because of dating apps, because she felt the pressure to be in a relationship. And I've been there. I've been single where my friends are like, you need to date someone. And it's like, but I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm happily being me. If I meet somebody, that's great, but it's okay that I'm not. But when you're single, you guys have been there too. We all have been there. People will be like, oh, we just need to get you the right guy or girl, and that's going to fix everything. And it's not. It's just it's one of the lies that our society tells us. It's a nice addition. I like to think of your family as kind of like your zombie attack team. When you meet people who are truly like your soulmates, and that could be your brother, your sister, your best friend, whoever, the people you really connect with, and you add them to your team. But it doesn't have to be a romantic one. If it happens to be, yay, they're part of your team. But your team could be your cheetah, right, Patrick?
Yeah, that's my team right now. I mean,
I love your team.
I had a team, but yeah, movies like this sometimes they speak a little louder. As far as I was listening to you guys talk about the loss and everything else. It's seeing a movie like this, it's a bit of a trigger. But yeah, I mean. you know, when you do find that soulmate, or you do find, you know, whatever it is, you would do whatever you can to hold on to them, or whatnot. And sometimes it's in the cards, and sometimes it's not. And then when it's not, then you got to figure out, who's on your team, who's left.
Midnight Society is on your team, and the Gory. I'm on your team.
Yeah, I need it. That's for sure.
We got you,
I'm
buddy.
with you too, Pat.
Yeah, all the way. I got the go. We talked about this in the last one. I got you guys. I got that really big knife. We're good.
Yeah.
I want to draw attention to what Kevin said in the chat. He says, sorry, I don't feel that The Strangers are remake worthy. They're okay films, but they certainly aren't standouts in the genre. And then Danny said that he didn't think that it's been old enough for a remake. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I am astonished at all the shit they remake. They remade Goodnight Mommy. Goodnight Mommy came out in 2015. That's crazy that they
remade Cabin Fever.
How about Cabin? They remade Cabin Fever.
That's what I was just saying. Yes, it was like
nobody asked
that old.
Cabin Fever was even that was even 10 or so. Goodnight Mommy was not even 7 years old. Like that, like it's getting worse and worse. That's
with Goodnight Mommy, American remakes of foreign films is sometimes that's a faster turnaround.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at Black Christmas. They remade it in 2008, 2009. Turned around and did it again in 2019. It's like nobody asked for that. Nobody
asked for that. You want to know the story behind that? They actually wanted to do Slumber Party Massacre, and she couldn't get the rights. Thus proving that she gave zero shits about making a horror movie. She just wanted to.
You can make Slumber Party Massacre a feminist film. Wow, that's something.
The Slumber Party Massacre remake was really good, actually, but she didn't make it. So.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because I'm sure that remake was a lot better than Black Christmas 2019.
Okay.
But
I just want to draw attention. I want to draw attention to the comment that a brother from another age just put down on there. I've been saying that for years. I don't understand that why we haven't got another Dreamscape, because that movie kicked ass. Okay.
I will say we need more remakes of movies that maybe had a good idea that was poorly executed. I've seen a lot of movies like that where it's like, God, that was a really cool idea, but
the concept,
the execution was lacking. You know,
maybe because of lack of budget. You know, I think it's mainly, you know, there's one movie that I really liked. I liked the concept. It was called Hunter's Moon, and it came out, and I love the concept of a family of werewolves hunting serial killers.
That's cool.
Take my money, you know. But unfortunately, the budget and whatnot, and it didn't really get made how the filmmaker wanted it to make. The screenwriter, it just came out sort of bumpy. But the concept is like, oh, so will someone come back and revisit this concept, because it is epic. A rare thing about seeing a werewolves actually surviving a movie, werewolves doing something good in a movie. Nobody's seen that before. And it would have been awesome if it would have worked, but it just didn't have enough money to pull it off.
I can't remember the name of it, but I remember this one movie. It's like House at Willow something, but it's about these people who break into a house to kidnap this girl to get a ransom, and she's possessed. And I was like, that is such a killer idea. And the movie was so mediocre. Like, these are the things that need to be remade. But addressing Kevin's comment about whether or not this should be remade, you know, we've talked a lot about how the original Strangers is not necessarily for everybody. I think if you want kind of a bleak, nihilistic kind of movie, you know, it has different things to say than the remake or than the second one. Yeah, that's for you. And a lot of people hated part 2. So, you know, it depends what their motivations are for this. I don't think it's about money because it's so long after the fact. They are doing something different with it. It sounds like with the road trip and the Airbnb, it does already kind of make me think like, don't we have that movie already called Vacancy? But I don't know. But if they want to take that concept and make it maybe more like the second one, or make it more fun, or do something different with it, I think if you have something to add to it, then sure. If that's something you want to remake, go ahead. It could also be a requel, or, you know, like what they say in Scream, where it's kind of a sequel, kind of a remake, like a reboot. I mean, we don't have enough information about it yet, but it could always end up being something like that. And
I really hope they don't go backwards. I'd I'd rather see them go forward with the story, not backwards. Always.
I
I
could
think
see them
Kevin-
doing that though, where you find out Liv Taylor's character is in it somewhere or something.
Oh,
Like it's a
jeez.
remake, but it's also a sequel.
Or
That would
or unless it's an origin story, like how do they get? But which is pointless because they're dead. You know, it's like why are we going to go back to see an origin of three people when all three of them died in the third movie? And
I think
and the
that's why
second,
they're doing the remake because they can't do a sequel.
yeah.
I wish they wouldn't too. And it's funny because you were saying before, like you should remake stuff that had good idea and didn't execute. And I would say that would be the case of the original movie, but I wouldn't touch it. I don't think it's worth touching.
I think it's also fun to do a remake in maybe a different way that could be equally exciting. For instance, I'm a massive fan of The Bad Seed from, I think, 1956. I love that movie. And there's been talk for forever from Eli Roth of doing like a full rated R gory version of it. They did make a Lifetime movie, but it's a Lifetime movie. It's got Mackenzie Grace in it. It's good, but I'm kind of curious about this full blood and gore version. Like Eli Roth, present this. I would like to see it. Sometimes I think that's cool too. Like a radically different take on something is always interesting. I was glad when they did Slumber Party Massacre because the original one, the writer really wanted it to be a satire and to be a comedy. The director didn't get it. And so there's a little bit of it there, but it was never, you could tell they could have done so much more with it because the director didn't get it. Kind of like when you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. That's why it's so much different than the TV show because the director just didn't get what they were going for in terms of comedy. And so I was glad when they did the Slumber Party Massacre remake because the remake did get it and it did exploit that satire and that comedy.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it would be worth doing, but I don't know. I personally wouldn't be going to see it in a theater. I don't know. Would you? Would either of you go
No,
see that in a theater?
no, I wouldn't. This sounds like something straight to streaming. I mean, I just took a peek at the database page. They got all fresh faces on all unknowns. So they're going to do it for probably the same as the second movie, probably like a $5 million budget, maybe a little bit more. Five maybe because the first movie they made it for $9 million. The second movie they made it for $5, but they made $50 million less. And that's an attractive cast too. That's a very solid cast they got. Everybody in this movie is really strong.
Yeah, they got a gal from Riverdale.
They only made $32 million out of it. I think they're just gonna do it. They're gonna remake it for $5 million, put a lot of unknown faces in there, and then throw it out there and expect us to love it because horror is so hot right now.
Well, maybe it's getting a moment with mainstream audiences, but every so often horror does get moments with mainstream audiences. When people talk about this though, I always like to remind people that horror was the first big mainstream movie since our first talkie was Dracula and the Universal monsters were like the MCU back in the day. So every so often the mainstream audience gets excited by horror, but I think us true genre nerds, it's never not been exciting. It's never not been something that we're interested in. And even if it's bad, even though it's directed by Rennie Harlan, and I have my doubts about him, I will go see it because I see every horror movie in the theater, especially something that I know is linked to things that I've previously enjoyed. So I absolutely will go see it.
I think they ought to do is just make the movie and slap A24 on it, and then you got all these slappies to go watch it. I mean,
Danny makes a very good point here. He says it sounds like a different movie. Just going to call it Strangers is like the Wrong Turn remake. That's a good point because a lot of people do like the original Wrong Turn. The Wrong Turn remake was a completely different movie, but it was great. I actually like it better. So like I'm willing to give it a chance. I don't know how much I trust Rennie Harlan, but I'm gonna.
That's sort of funny you say that because that's exactly why I would have given it a chance because Rennie Harlan was directing it. Yeah.
But you like Cutthroat Island.
Yes, and
I totally respect that.
And Leprechaun.
I don't like it.
What about Leprechaun again?
It's a masterpiece.
Leprechaun in Space?
It's the cousin of a masterpiece. Related to a masterpiece.
Cutthroat Island. And you know what? You guys got to go all
no one's saying I have good taste. If I don't like it, do not let it offend you because I do not have good taste.
I love Cutthroat Island. She was so good in there. Okay.
Like I said, I love Dr. Giggles. I love the Suckling. I love the Leprechaun movies. Never be offended if I don't agree with you on a movie.
Dark Man, man, Larry
Dark Man's good.
I just don't. I personally, I don't know. I think they're just. I think they're making the movie not so much because they believe in the movie. I think they're making the movie because right now, low budget movies are just everything that's being released is pretty much a hit. You have Barbarian, we have Black Phone, you had Terrifier 2. You're seeing just a ton of these movies come out, and even the smaller ones are just still they're generating big press, not necessarily big returns always, but they're like the Menu's got really good reviews. Flex Gourmet has really got really good reviews, and I think that right now people are just they're just feeding the horror machine because it's white hot right now. So
Yeah.
I feel like though that they're totally using The Stranger's name to sell it more than
And
anything.
honestly, I'm kind of thinking that you're right on that. I hope you're not, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because if let's say put it to you this way, Vacancy and there's a Vacancy prequel. Let's say they call it Vacancy 2. I don't think it would get as much watch as
And
what we call The Strangers.
I'm also skeptical because of the Airbnb, because we've just had a couple movies recently, especially Barbarian, using an Airbnb. So it's like, well, that's successful. And when I see stuff like that, I feel like there's a money person, a producer behind the scenes going, well, obviously the Airbnb is what caused that to make a lot of money, because they never get it. They never get.
Oh, they don't get it at all. They're as clueless can be, because they would be drowned in money if they actually did get it, but they don't. Yep. They never get it. I completely agree with you. They're clueless. It's frustrating how
very
dumb
skeptical.
They are. Yeah, for real.
A trailer or something could always turn it around. You never know. I'll try to be open-minded. I liked what Brother says here. He says, Batman and Spider-Man, for instance, have been retold and reimagined, interested in the retelling. Why do you guys think horror movies or thrillers have a hard time doing it?
The audience is the completely difference. This is, and I don't sound like I'm being mean and insensitive to the Marvel or DC, whatever the hell. They are the biggest fucking fanboys and fangirls on the face of the planet. They will go see any Spider-Man movie that you release. It could be Tom Holland taking a shit for 2 hours. They will be lined up around the block talking about the comics that brought them there. It's just a different demographic. Those people will go see anything. They want to go see Morbius, and everyone they all knew going in it was going to be bad, and they went and supported it just because of the name brand. Horror is like that. It's aside from maybe the big three, like Michael Myers, definitely it could be a piece of shit. People will go see it, but The Strangers, it doesn't carry that same weight. It's not going to be it's never going to be $100 million movie. Never.
No, it won't have the cachet. I mean, this is a movie that's going to go straight to streaming. You think they're going to release this for any sort of length? This will get a week at the theaters and then go straight to streaming.
I could see it going to the theaters. You did. What do you think?
I think the MCU has earned a lot of goodwill with people, because overall the MCU has been pretty good. With Batman, I think people are just taking a chance because, they love Batman. But also remember, these are comic books that were adapted into movies. And so there isn't that, need to have it be like the first movie, because the first movie was an adaptation. Whereas with horror fans, one, I think we're very loyal, even to the weaker movies like Leprechaun in Space. Actually, I'm not a huge fan of Leprechaun in Space, but I do love Leprechaun 3. But I think we're really loyal. Whereas like Leprechaun's an example. It's a movie that was an original property. It came out as a film. So if you were remaking that, we want that Leprechaun. We want Warwick Davis. We want that comedy. We don't want what the WWE did with it with Leprechaun Origins. Because our basis here is not a comic book or years of comic books. It's a movie. And so we're a lot more adamant about how it's done. It needs to be in that vein because we liked that movie for these reasons. It needs to continue that. Also, like the comics have done so many different things, so they've already experimented a lot, and I think that makes it to where the films are allowed to experiment too.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, and even talking back, not getting it, the Leprechaun Origins, that's a classic case of they didn't get it. That the whole charm of any of those movies was that. Oh, the German Spider-Man, yeah, That's I'm telling you, if you put a theatrical release in Spider-Man, they will be line up around the block.
Another thing, it's you guys understand it with YouTube. When you have things that appeal to children, you have a bigger audience. Spider-Man, you're gonna have people taking their kids to go see it. You're gonna have teenagers who are gonna go see it. You're gonna have people our age seeing it. It's a much bigger audience. So yeah, anybody, a lot more people are going to go see it. That's why they should do a lot of PG-13 horror movies, because they're trying to get what the MCU is able to do by having a bigger pool of people who are allowed to come to the cinema.
That's the one thing I hope that they don't do with the Strangers reboot. I hope they don't soften it down to a PG-13, which if it gets caught by Blumhouse or whatnot, it might go to PG-13. I don't think it's a franchise that should do that. I think it'll weaken it.
Is the first one though? The first one is, I wouldn't say it's a very R-rated movie.
It's really not. I mean, honestly, I think The Ring and The Grudge are scarier, and they are PG-13.
I think The Strangers got the R rating is because for the last scene where they're getting stabbed.
Probably Strangers.
Honestly, the ratings board, and this is a whole other ball of wax, but the ratings board, they're a lot harder on sex, and there is a kind of sex scene. Just showing too much of her thigh could have gotten an R rating.
Wow.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, could have.
The thighs that'll cross your eyes.
It's insane the things that get an R rating, especially in America. Sexuality stuff that's pretty much going to get you an R rating. Also, saying the F word too many times is going to get you an R rating. The Breakfast Club is rated R.
It makes sense though. The language in that movie is crazy. Like it is. They say a lot. They drop a lot of F-bombs in Breakfast Club. I rewatched that recently, and I was like, wow, like it almost feels like Kevin Smith wrote it at times. Like if he went back to the 80s.
And I agree with Danny. Give us a break. Give us a Batman Beyond movie. Take a break. Also, the other thing is, producers are going to keep putting money towards things that make money. And I've said this 1,000 times before, guys. Your dollar is your vote. So if a movie, if you're a horror fan and a horror movie's at the cinema, even if you're not super into the idea, but you think the concept sounds kind of cool, go see it. Because then you're telling the studios, if that's an original idea, that you want more original ideas. If it's a Michael Myers movie, that you want more Michael Myers movies. So you vote with your dollar. If something sounds really interesting to you, it's on your anticipated list.
That's why we got the second Strangers, because the first one made over $80 million on a $9 budget. Of course, you're going to get a remake. Anytime you're going to get something, look at Barbarian. Rest assured, there'll be another Barbarian. They're going to do a sequel to that.
Makes me sad when there's really good movies. Like I think Scream 4 is one, The Final Girls, a lot of great movies that nobody went and saw,
Yeah.
The money people will see that and they won't make another one.
Well, that's a good thing about some movies. Sometimes it does take a little time to percolate. I mean, I'm sure when The Strangers came out, $82 million. Yeah, it's great and everything else. But I think afterwards, it became a cult film too. People started discovering it. They started talking about it. Maybe home sales. When they put it on sale for a home, for the home market, maybe it sold another, $20 million worth of movies. You'll see that for sometimes it takes time for a movie to percolate, so to speak, and all of a sudden you realize that, hey, it did really well. It's every year, like Trick or Treat is the most infamous one I can think of. Every year that movie gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and yet we had no sequel.
Agreed.
And it was never in the theater for theatrical run. They just went straight to DVD with the Trick or Treat, which
I know. That's why they need to make a Trick or Treat too, because it's got a loyal audience from, like Patrick said, word of mouth. Scream is another one too, where it came out and it did okay, but it actually got a bigger box office the second week, and that never happens. But it went up and it went up and it went up, and it was still getting bigger numbers even weeks after it came out. But that's because of word of mouth, because people saw it and they're like, "Holy shit, you guys need to see this movie!" So that's exciting.
Definitely.
Don't know if we're gonna get that with the Strangers remake, but I do think here's what I'll say about it. When I heard that Strangers Pray at Night, the movie we're talking about was getting made, I was the first one who was like, why do we need a Strangers sequel? What the heck?
Yep.
I didn't care about the character. Honestly, I thought it was really pointless. And
Yeah,
the
I did.
same guy wasn't directing it. I didn't know who this new guy was. I was just like, I thought it sounded really silly. And I was kind of like, just not one of the people on board. I went into it with the lowest of expectations and I was like pumped afterwards. I'm like, that was such a great time. And guys, if you haven't seen this, this movie is a great time. This is a movie that you're energized afterwards. You're excited because it's a horror movie that did it. You know, it was fun, and it is fun on a rewatch. And so yeah, it completely blew my expectations away. I was really bummed when a lot of people I know online didn't like it, because I think it's really, really great, and really underrated.
Yeah, I
So
had the same exact experience. I went to the dragged to the theater. I was like, I'm gonna hate this. And then I was like, wow. And everybody else I went with was like, oh, it was a bunch of bullshit. And then I went home and I was like, oh man, sure there'll definitely be somebody that agrees. And the more and more reviews I watched, it was like, yeah, I was like, I finally I think I get it because I didn't like the first one. I put this one over, and then it seems like all of you like the first one buried this. So it's rare that you see someone who likes both. So it's good though.
do you guys like both? Like, what are your guys' thoughts on both of them? Like, do you like them both, or do you dislike one and like the other?
Did you want
I
to
like
take
them
that
both.
first, Pat?
Yeah, I like them both. I like them both for different reasons.
Which one do you like better?
I definitely would recommend buying them both.
Which one
Which one do you like
better?
better?
Well, I mean, I like overall. If I had to choose one, I would pick the first one. I would. I like the suspense. I like the way it drew it out. I mean, I like the second one very much too, but like the first one, I like the slow burn. You know, I like the the bleak endings there. It's it is a little bit discouraging, but it's to watch, but it made it more real. It's like I can see this happening in especially when especially when you find out that the stories they based it on, were the Manson murders and whatnot. You can definitely see that happening. But I think both of the movies are very good. I mean, I like the second one too for the cast and for the development of Bailey Madison as an actress, and so I like them both for different reasons, I guess. I hope that's not a cop out.
No, not at all. I think that was a really great response. Really great.
Yeah, same. I do too. I don't like the first one. I never did. I think it's an overrated movie. The second one I think is fairly underrated. I think it's a shock because I'd never in a million years thought I would like it, and I did. I thought it was a very good different step in a different direction with a tone that I thought worked much better, vibrance that worked much better, music that worked better, characters that worked better. I just thought it was a way better take on the same premise for me personally.
I'm gonna agree with Patrick here, not on your pick, but just in liking them better. I mean, for me, it's like I like them both for very different reasons. It's like I can like apples and oranges, even though they're different, and I don't necessarily, think that one is bad. I do like the second one more by like half a star. I do like it more. I'd probably get the second one 4 stars. I'd probably get the first one 3.5. I think it's a solid film. It's beautifully photographed, great performances. It is genuinely scary. It is genuinely creepy. It's a very effective film. It's just not one I want to rewatch a lot, so that would diminish it a bit for me. But definitely was one that maybe got under my skin more the first time I saw it. It is good. I have it in my collection. I have the Scream Factory version. It's a great movie. But yeah, that second one, that's one where I'm like, damn, I want to see that pool scene again, and I will pop that in, and it never fails to entertain.
Totally.
You totally just lended me from Halloween. Totally. Awesome. This has been a lot of fun, guys. I really like your perspectives here. I think you guys brought a lot to the conversation. Really appreciate you guys coming here into the glory hole, hanging out with us, and talking about this movie. I think we had a good discussion.
Yeah, I thank you for thanks for letting us do this with you on Sunday night. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and I'm very excited about it, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun in the glory hole.
Yeah, I hope you come back. I really like your direct takes, and I always appreciate you, Patrick, because a lot of people aren't very fair, but you always see the positive in the movie, and that's something I really like about you. This is a great panel. You guys are both incredible guests. I look forward to us doing more stuff in the future. And guys, everyone in the chat, I really appreciated your input. Kevin, Danny, brother of a certain age. I've never seen you here before, but yeah, you brought some great discussions in. We had some great people here. This was fun. And guys, every Sunday you actually do, even when we're not connected, get a double feature of the Cheetah and the Gory. Because the Cheetah starts at 5 Pacific Standard Time. And I'm on at 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. So, yeah,
it's a quality night of good horror. Once in a while, we'll slip in some action. More than welcome to and come over and check us out. And then we always put Gory's channel up there. You guys can slide on over and come over here and party with her. Always a great time in the Gory hole.
You've been so supportive of my channel since we've become friends, and I really, really appreciate that. I love sharing Sunday nights with you. It's a great double lineup. It makes me think of like back in the day when I'd watch like Tales from the Crypt, and then I'd watch Monster Vision. So pretty exciting night. Let's end it by answering brother of a certain age's question. I love this question. I'm about to go into my Shudder subscription now. Any suggestions? Let's all give him a suggestion of something on Shudder that's really good.
I know what Pat is going to be anything IFC Midnight.
Yeah,
hey, Dark and the Wicked's on there. You like that?
Yeah, Dark and the Wicked's on. Go on the Shudder if you get a chance to watch. I'm going to say if you get a chance to watch a movie like Watcher, highly recommend that. IFC Midnight. Yeah, that's a movie that came out last year and is very highly thought of. And or you can go back to some of the older ones. There you got Pontypool, you got Haunter, you got A Dark Song, you got Devil's Doorway, Devil's Candy. I Trapped the Devil, which we'll be covering on IFC Midnights on the 29th. We'll be covering that movie too for the IFC Midnights. I Trapped the Devil.
Yes. Hell yeah. I would say anything folk horror. They have a whole folk horror page. And they got some pretty awesome movies. Conqueror Worm, Blood on Satan's Claw. Can't go wrong with any of that, brother. So I would say give some folk horror some love.
Absolutely. Hey guys, this is the Gory B Movie channel. So I gotta recommend a Gory B movie. I'm gonna recommend one of my all-time favorites that is on Shudder. It's Uninvited by Graydon Clark. Not the fancy ghost one, because I have a lot of fancy ghost ones. No, this is the one about a mutant cat that pukes up a smaller mutant cat on a boat. It's like everything you want in a movie and more. It's a movie that just keeps giving and giving and giving. And as Patrick would say, it's got a cat in it. So,
yeah.
I think we just set you up with a great night. You're welcome. Guys, this is to know where they can find you and, say your goodbyes. And if you're planning anything that you want to share, let us know.
Go ahead, John.
I don't have anything to really plug. I do my show. Anybody new that doesn't know my channel, I do a show live every Thursday at 8:05. Yes, it's just because it rhymes. Live at 8:05.
Is that Eastern time?
Eastern time, live at 8:05 Eastern time. And yeah, I've had so many wonderful, colorful guests. I generally, sometimes most of the time, do shows just on my own. I'll pick a topic. I try to keep the topic as different and unique as I can. And it's a lot of fun. But I want to say to Gory, thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time shooting the breeze with you guys. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, what have I got? I got talking to Deborah Sullivan tomorrow. I'll be joined by Al Lucard, aka The Bat. He'll be with me on Monday, 8 o'clock. On Tuesday, I'm talking to comedian and cult survivor Sarah Dunn will be with us on Tuesday. She's got a hell of a story, and hopefully you guys will come out and listen to it. And
I'm gonna put. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all I got.
I'm gonna put both our links in the description. I didn't have John's in there, but what is your channel called again, John?
Grande's Graveyard.
Grande's Graveyard. I will write that in the chat. And I'm gonna have a link in the description after the stream is over. For me, I have a foreign horror stream I do with some friends over on Master Chaos's channel. That'll be on the 17th. We're going to talk about Santa Sangre and Tag, so that should be fun.
Hell yeah.
And yeah. And then next Sunday, I think is Fight Night Universal Monsters, guys. So that's pretty exciting.
Vampire.
Yeah, I'll do Vampire. Absolutely.
Is he coming back? Is he coming back next Sunday?
Well, I mean, it's the oldest dude vampire. It's Dracula, right?
Well, yeah. Well,
Is it not your old dude vampire? I'm gonna design you a shirt.
We should retire Dracula and then slip in old dude vampire.
I love your love for old dude vampire. Patrick, are you down with ODV?
I'm down with ODB. Let's bring it on. We want revenge. Who do old dude vampire lose to? God, he lost to somebody.
Goodness, I don't remember. That was on our fight night. I don't remember.
Fight nights are awesome.
They are fun. And we got Grande's Graveyard link in the chat. Thank you so much, Kevin. You are awesome. Awesome moderator. You guys, this has been super fun. Also, yeah, so every Sunday, you can always catch me and Patrick. No matter what we're doing, we do have a show unless, I don't know, we're in the hospital. But there's almost always a show.
That's right.
So definitely check us back next week. I have links to everything in the doobly-doo down below. Thank you for watching. And until we meet again, blessed be. Oh, and I don't have end credits this week because I'm doing it on StreamYard. So I'm just going to play the intro again. Enjoy!
What you want?